Well, hello and welcome to this episode of the Terri Show. I am so excited that you decided to hang out with me today for a little bit of time. So many things going on, and because I'm focusing on love, because Real Love Revolution season is in full swing, someone wrote in and asked me about walking on eggshells. Like they feel like they need to walk on eggshells in a lot of their relationships, not just a love relationship, and asked me if I would cover that on the show. So that's what we're talking about today. How to stop walking on eggshells and how to understand why you are compelled to do it in the first place. So before we get into the content, I want to tell you what else is going on in January in my world, which is also your world. So right now I am calling all the single ladies and all the partnered ladies because I want you to have 2020 be the year of epic, real, juicy, vibrant love for you, whether you're in a relationship or whether you are seeking to be partnered. So single ladies, partnered ladies, this, what I'm calling non-challenge, is for you. So this is called More Love Meditation Experience. And basically the way I've organized it, I've taken the top 10 biggest blocks to love that I've seen in my last 22 years of being a licensed psychotherapist, basically in the trenches with my clients. And I've created a 10-day experience for you to reflect on those things, to understand those things, and to change what's happening in your life if you would like more love in your life. So the way it works is that each day for 10 days, I send you a little love note. Within there is your daily mindful focus. So we're going to be focusing on a small but powerful situation, circumstance, strategy on that day. You're also going to get your therapeutically designed guided meditation that basically will help you integrate that day's mindful focus. Super easy breezy, right? All you have to do, and keep in mind, a lot of people are like, but I'm not a meditator. What do I do? Here's the thing. You don't have to be a meditator. Do you have a butt? Oh, you could do this. Do you have a couch or a chair or a bed? You can do this because literally all you need to do is click play on the meditation to participate. So all you need to do if you want to get in on this More Love Meditation Experience is just go to terricole.com/more love. Don't worry, it will also be in the show notes, but I wanted to give you a heads up that is starting on the 13th. So I don't want you to miss out. I'm super duper excited. It's what me and Team TC have been working on for the past 4 months probably. So I hope that you join us, ladies. All right, moving on to today's topic, shall we? I think we shall. First of all, let's just get a working definition of what walking on eggshells actually is. It's being super self-conscious. It's being in a hyper-vigilant state of interacting with someone in your life. Now, this could be a boss. This could be your partner. This could be a friend. It could be your mother, your father, a sibling. It really could be anyone. What I want to accomplish in this episode of the Terri Cole Show is I want you to be aware of if you're doing it, why you're doing it, because there's two ways to go on this. You might be being hyper-vigilant and looking for signs that the other person is pissed off, walking on eggshells, right? Being afraid of that person's erratic response or explosive response. There could be two reasons why you're doing that. One, you've had the experience in the past. So you learned. It becomes a habitual response to relationships where you just learn to, it's like there's a certain amount of auto-accommodating that goes on, or your antennas became so high because of what you experienced in childhood that you're always scanning the room, scanning the people, scanning the conversation for danger, for someone being angry. Because, listen, kids, if nothing else, kids are adaptive as hell. So when you learn, let's say that you have a volatile parent someone who has no good self-regulation of their own emotions. So you don't know what will set them off. You don't know. If you grew up in that situation, you don't know. You don't know when it's safe and when it's not. So hypervigilance comes about, meaning that you're always on guard because you don't want to be hurt, because you don't want to be the target of someone's irrational rage or anger or abuse or tirade, right? There's a whole bunch of things that it could be coming out in lots of different ways. It could have when you were a child. But all a kid knows is that they don't want to continue to have that experience. So you twist yourself up in a pretzel and become super hyper vigilant to avoid that. Of course, it doesn't work, because if that person has a mental health diagnosis like borderline personality disorder, there's lots of things that could create this unstable relationship to self and relationship to your own emotions. It doesn't matter what you do as a child. Like, there's no way to win. You're in what we say therapeutically is called a double bind, where you're screwed either way. Basically, you're screwed if you can figure out how to avoid all the pitfalls, but you do that at the expense of your internal peace, at the expense of how you feel, at the expense of having any idea as a child how you feel. You just don't. There's no space. There's only survival, right? And then if you don't do it, if you don't become hypervigilant, and it's not like you have a choice, it just automatically happens because we're adaptive like that. But let's say you had a choice and you were like, I'm not going to do that in my childhood home, let's say. Then you would literally be setting yourself up to be the target of this person's rage more often than you probably already were. So nobody wants that either. So I'm trying to I am making the distinction between walking on eggshells because we had a past experience, and this is ingrained habitual behavior in almost any relationship, right? It doesn't even have to be a love relationship for us to be looking for the signs of like, hey, are you disapproving? Hey, do you not like this? Are you going to be angry? Like, you become such a chameleon when you have a childhood like that. And it does not even have to be extreme. So I'm not even talking about, the person doesn't even have to be a super rageaholic. As a kid, if you grow up in a family system where you were afraid of the disapproval of your parents, that can also create a certain hypervigilance around just not wanting someone's disapproval, not wanting to be rejected. And again, how it can show up in the body and in your unconscious and conscious mind is that it's still sucking up a ton of bandwidth and really gets in the way of us being like, wait, but how do I feel? And what do I want? And who am I? I mean, we can't spend our whole adult lives being like, I just don't want to be in the line of fire. Of course you don't. I don't blame you. But a lot of times our own dysfunction is that we're still responding like we're in our childhood home, but we're not in our adult relationships, which is maladaptive. And again, I've talked about this before. A lot of what happens in our childhood experiences is very adaptive, right? We learn to sort of get out of the way. We learn to, sort of function under the radar because we are dependent on these people for our survival, right? It's not like at 7, you're like, hey, I'm getting my own apartment. Like, that isn't happening. So, and you know that. No one needs to tell you that. We intuitively know that. So that might be happening in your current life. You might be responding not because the people that you're in relationship with now are behaving the way that you experienced in your childhood. It just might be so unconscious that you're just doing it. So that's one thing. And the other thing is you might be in a relationship with someone who is a rageaholic, an alcoholic, someone who has issues, someone who's constantly criticizing you. So let's get into what behavior you might be exhibiting if you are walking on eggshells all the time. Like, what does that actually look like? Because it's a phrase that when you hear it, You know what I'm talking about, correct? Did any one of you see the name of this episode and go, I don't know what that means? I mean, maybe if you live in a different country with a different language, sure. But if you live in a primarily English speaking country, you know exactly what that means. Like the moment you see it, you can feel that visceral, like, oh, how much it sucks to go through life never tapping into how you really feel, always just basically avoiding negativity from other people or a confrontation. It's just friggin' exhausting. But the most important thing is that it's not satisfying. It's living an inauthentic life, because it's like living in like the war is on mode, but if you're not in an abusive relationship now, the war is not on. So let's look. I want to just give you some ideas of what you might be exhibiting, the things that you're experiencing now, or the way that you are going through life, to know that if you are kind of perpetually walking on eggshells. The first one is that you can check the temperature. It's like you're mood checking every person that you interact with, right? You check the temperature in the room. Conversation, is everything okay? I used to be able to, when Vic and I would go out to dinner, I would literally be able to talk to him and then say to him, oh, you know, the people 4 rows back and to the right now, they're getting into a fight, and I have a feeling that guy is violent, so let's get the check. I just want to go. He's like, hello? Are you listening to me at all? That was the first question. I'm like, oh no, I am. I'm listening to you, and I'm also sensing what's happening over there. For me, once those high antennas happened in my life, for whatever my own reasons are, I became such an empath, so dialed into my environment, that I then ended up doing this for a living because it actually helps. Doing this for a living, right? Being a psychotherapist, putting this information out there in the world, understanding the way the human mind and human emotions work. I don't mind being an empath. I just know how to take care of myself, and I'm not doing it all the time. But if there is danger, my spidey sense just happens on its own. Not that I've been hyper vigilant about it. Anyway, just saying, because I know there's a lot of empaths and highly sensitive people in this crew. And I always find it something like, I do believe that for me, that is my superpower. And I do believe that being a kind of hyper-vigilant kid really helped me have this insight and this knowledge about people, because it's what I did, you know? So anyway, there's a healthy way to do it so it doesn't dominate your entire internal experience, though. And that's why I'm doing an episode on it, and I hope it's helpful. So mood checking, right? So we're talking about checking the temperature of all the people, all the rooms, all the things. Walking around, you always feeling tense, because that's what hypervigilance creates. Your body feels tense. You're like, what is happening right now? Being very dialed into the non-verbal cues of other people. So again, that's reading the room, but we're reading people themselves. We're talking to them. If someone shifts, there can also be you're looking for like facial cues, because if you grew up in a home where you were dominated in this way because you had a parent who fell into any of those categories I was talking about before, you're so used to, they would dominate you by giving you a look, right? Like a scary, mean look, by being hostile, by using humiliation, right? Sarcasm, being basically, being mean, but it's so much more than that, because this is where the hypervigilance comes in. It's not just your regular being mean, because we can look at that. It's someone trying to be physically intimidating. And of course, it includes physical, verbal, emotional abuse. Obviously, that is included if you experience that. But for a lot of people, this is insidious and hard to put your finger on, because there wasn't physical abuse. So not everyone, but just a lot of the women in my, our crew have the experience of like, I don't really believe that it happened because they weren't being physically violent with me. I'm like, oh my God, sometimes verbal and emotional violence is even worse. Another symptom to look for in yourself is auto-accommodating, where you're constantly, naturally, without even thinking about it, just avoiding, like trying to make everyone's life better, everything easier, everything smooth. We just don't want any conflict, which is friggin' exhausting. And if you're in a current relationship with someone with this type of explosive anger problem, or continuous, because it isn't just anger. It could be someone who's angry at the world, who's constantly complaining, but it feels like they're beating you with that stick, where they're complaining about politics or complaining about people and how stupid other people are. But really, when you're in that environment, and it's just like someone driving, right? Driving, having road rage, but being like, well, it's not about you. You're like, okay, but I'm a prisoner in this car and you're scaring the shit out of me. Thanks, please stop. That is a way of also, of course, you become hypervigilant, because how do you stop yourself from being afraid when you're in a car with someone who's driving like a crazy person? Impossible, you know? And hey, if this is you, any of you who are watching this, be mindful, please. So, you guys know, you can, I created, because it's already got long, because I'm so passionate about, I don't want you walking on eggshells anymore, although I do want you to be safe. So, I have your ideas. I've created a guide for you that you can find in the show notes of this episode. If you watch it on YouTube, they'll be right there. There's somewhere where you can just click. If you listen to it on the podcast, as I said last week, thank you. We passed the $1 million podcast download mark. What? Are you kidding me? Yes, we did. So I'm still feeling the glow of so much gratitude for you guys being here and caring, and thank you. Okay, moving on to what's going to be in your guide. So the steps you want to take, we have to do a behavior inventory. So basically, this is going to be, I've just put it in question form so you can see it. Your behavior. Are you checking all the rooms and all the people? Are you afraid of confrontation? All of those things that I talked about throughout this episode. And then the second thing is there's going to be a couple of blueprint questions so that you can understand if you're having a transfer, is there something happening from your childhood that is making you behave, that is informing your behavior now, but that it's not necessary, that you're not in a dangerous situation, but you somehow, the child within you hasn't gotten the memo that that's what's going on. The third thing I'm giving you to do is check the 3 Qs. So if you know my work, you know this. If you've taken a course with me, you know this. These are 3 very powerful questions that you'll be able to ask yourself when you're displaying this experience, when you're displaying this behavior, being afraid, trying to auto-accommodate, to see what does it harken back to in your childhood, in your life, in the past. Where else have you felt like this? Because that is very valuable information, and hopefully it will give you some clarity. The 4th thing we're looking at is self-care. It's exhausting doing this. You need to up your self-care, whether you're doing this because you're in a relationship with someone who is toxic, because this is definitely toxic behavior, or not. Your self-care needs to be better than it is right now. The 5th thing we're looking at is boundaries, is really getting where this person ends and you begin, stepping back, having boundaries, internal boundaries, which means being aware of what is happening right now in real life and what is not happening right now in real life. So that internal clarity that hopefully something on this guide will give you will create more freedom and liberation for you to behave in a way that is aligned with what you want to create in your life, but also with what is going on, with being in this present moment. And the last thing I want to say, which I always say about anything, if you are in any kind of a dangerous situation, if you are with someone who is volatile, if there is physical, even mental, verbal abuse, seek professional help, please. I will drop a link. There's a page on terricole.com with all kinds of support that you can get 24 hours a day in all different countries. Please do that, because you matter. We need you. You've got to take care of yourself. So If you like this episode, please share it. If you're not a subscriber on YouTube, on iTunes, please do. Also, hey, join the More Love Meditation Experience. Don't you want to basically float into 2020 and have it be your year of epic, real love? Single or partnered ladies, this experience is for you. And you don't have to be a meditator to do it. If you have a tush and a couch, you're perfectly equipped to do this thing and rock it out. I am so excited. So, to be continued, I hope you guys have an amazing week. And as always, take care of you.